Alright, bonjour, ladies and testicles. In this video, I want to make the case for why the Bitcoin cycle bottom may have already taken place, or at the very least, why we could be extremely close to a cycle bottom for Bitcoin. This is very important to understand because if you understand cycle theory, you understand that buying near a cryptocurrency cycle bottom has been historically extremely profitable, and Bitcoin is extremely important to understand, not just for Bitcoin investors, but because Bitcoin greatly affects the rest of the altcoin market and is greatly correlated. When Bitcoin tops off, that's around when the altcoin market tops off as well, roughly speaking. So I'll delve into why I think the cycle bottom could be in, and if you stick around to the end of the video, I want to share with you guys a brand new custom indicator that I created with the help of chatgpt, specifically designed to help me better understand when the next cycle all-time high could be. So folks, if that sounds interesting, stick around, like, subscribe, click all the buttons, you know what to do.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
All right, folks, so to begin here, looking at our very colorful chart, we're looking at history of Bitcoin here. We can see that the first cycle from the all-time high, the parabolic blow off top, to the bottom, 426 days. Second cycle, 365 days. And so what this tells us is that bear markets have typically lasted in the past roughly a year or just over a year. And so, folks, if we measure from this cycle's all-time high to 426 days, that is essentially where we are at this month of January. So, folks, considering historical time analysis, there is some reason to think that we are very close to or at a cycle bottom. As well, if we take a look at some of our favorite indicators, the MACD, all right, folks, if we notice on the monthly MACD, whenever the histogram has started to tick up in the bullish direction, where momentum has shifted from a bearish momentum to a bullish momentum, that bullish momentum shift noted in the lighter kind of pink histogram tick here, that has historically correlated to being very close to the cycle bottom. So we can see this histogram tick right here coincides, if we zoom in a bit here, to this monthly candle right here and this kind of beige white line we're seeing here. Now, if we zoom back to the first Bitcoin cycle bottom here, we can see the exact same thing. When the histogram starts to shift to more of a bullish momentum marked by this white line or this beige line here as well, we can see that was pretty goddamn close to a cycle bottom. So now we have timing analysis, we have a momentum indicator kind of pointing towards the fact that we could be close to a cycle all-time bottom, because if we look at what's happening right now in the short term, we can see that the MACD histogram has now had several monthly candles of momentum shifting in a more bullish direction. We can see that when the histogram started to shift more bullishly, that coincided with this month right here. Now, folks, let's take a look at the monthly stochastic RSI. So right here, this white line is the RSI, the normal relative strength index. And something I'd like to point out is that this cycle bottom actually put in the lowest RSI levels we have ever seen historically, which is pretty interesting. And now we're starting to see upside curvature. But what I want to kind of highlight here for a moment is the stochastic RSI and its bottoms. So historically speaking, every time the stochastic RSI has entered the oversold region, just below our 20 mark here, and spent some time here, had a bullish crossover, and then begun to see bullish momentum to the upside curvature, essentially this crossover here, that coincides with this monthly candle, which is pretty goddamn close to the first cycle all-time low. If we take a look at kind of the 2019 cycle, once we spent time in the oversold region, bullish crossover, upside curvature, that bullish crossover right there, that marked the cycle bottom as well. So now we have two cycles of when this happens, it marks pretty goddamn close to the cycle bottom. Now, if we take a look at what's happening this cycle, we have the stochastic RSI spending some time in the oversold region, having a bullish crossover. Now we're starting to see upside curvature. That kind of marked the monthly low for this cycle. So, folks, we essentially have, to break things down and summarize things here, we essentially have a couple of historically somewhat accurate indicators pointing towards the fact that we could be close to a cycle bottom, or at the very least, we're seeing signals that have historically marked cycle or local bottoms for Bitcoin. Now, something we need to be aware of, we're currently living in a period of quantitative tightening, meaning money is becoming more expensive. The American Federal Reserve has been raising its interest rates, essentially increasing the cost of money, and therefore essentially slowing the flow of money into speculative markets, which has been acting as a suppressant on the S&P and on the crypto markets as well. But we're currently starting to see some signs of inflation slowing down, at the very least momentarily. We'll see how it's going to play out long term, which has led to a bit of a relief rally here in the short term. So point being, there are kind of some macro reasons to think that there could be further downside. Also, Bitcoin has historically had 84-85% drawdowns from its all-time high. If we kind of measure, how far we drew down from the 2017 high, it was an 84% correction. If we look at how far we've fallen from the 2021 cycle high, we're only down about 78%. So, if we draw down the amount of percentage that we usually do, there is the argument that there is potentially further downside. So again, this relief rally that we're seeing could just simply be a temporary relief rally, a bull trap, where we essentially have a correction and consolidate, or we could have a correction and put in new lows, or we can essentially just move sideways. There's many things that constitute a bull trap. It's yet to be seen kind of how it's going to play out in the short term. Bottom line is we do have some macro factors pointing towards the idea that we could be at or very close to a cycle bottom. So, folks, the way I kind of think about this is, regardless of whether we're at a cycle bottom or not, any dips one can get in this market, I see personally, not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, this is not financial investment or trading advice of any kind, but I see any dips we currently have in this market as a buying opportunity, because, folks, as we approach the next Bitcoin halving, which is in March 2024, historically speaking, after each Bitcoin halving, all the pumps have been historically sustainable, meaning in a bear market, you can't really trust the pump. Like with this pump we're experiencing right now, there's a great deal of uncertainty whether or not this will be sustainable, whether or not this is just a short-term, pump followed by an inevitable correction, because we still have not experienced a Bitcoin halving. Going into a bear market where we're getting close to a Bitcoin halving, these pumps have been somewhat untrustworthy here. Like if we look back at the 2019 bear market, we have a pump. It was rather untrustworthy. And sure, we had the Black Swan event with the global big cough. But point being, we did see corrections before the Bitcoin halving as well. See, pump and then a correction. So, pumps are rather unreliable in bear markets, but come the Bitcoin halving afterwards, pumps have been historically sustainable. So we have the next Bitcoin halving come March 2024, where we're likely to begin a parabolic structure come into 2025 if we continue to behave in a similar fashion as we have in the past, which is extremely likely, in my opinion, because that's how we've behaved historically. So essentially, folks, this time until March 2024, I see any dips that we could have as just accumulation opportunities for the inevitable bull run that will come starting March 2024 and really kind of having its blow off top, I believe, sometime in 2025. Now, I don't want to make this video too long, but I do want to tease y'all with a new indicator I've created that essentially measures divergence away from the 50-day simple moving average. Now, why the 50-day simple moving average? Why is it important to measure divergence away from this moving average? Well, folks, I have tested many different exponential moving averages and simple moving averages for Bitcoin, and historically speaking, the 50-day simple moving average, more than any other moving average I'm aware of, has done an uncannily good job of calling when Bitcoin's bull market has ended, not just one cycle, but two cycles in a row. So if we look at kind of the 2021 cycle here, it once we begun our bull market, we had a correction, tested it, held as support at least once, continued our parabolic structure, came back to retest it. Once we had 3 daily candles opening, closing below it, that kind of marked the end of the bull market, or at least a large phase of it. And if we look back at 2017 as well, very similar thing. Price going up, come back down, retest it, holding as support. Price goes up, come back down, retest it. Eventually, once we break below it, have 3 daily candles opening, closing below it, we never went back up again. So this one moving average, I think, does a very good job. I'm not calling the Bitcoin cycle top perfectly, but it does give you a very good understanding of when the risk of being a bull in the market greatly increases past a certain point. Once we get those daily closes opening and closing below it, it's far more risky to be a participant in the market, which I think is a very useful tool in your tool bag for trying to understand when it might be sensible to take profits. Now, measuring divergence from the 50-day SMA, I think, is an attempt, at least the way I conceptualize it, is an attempt to kind of get closer to what might be a cycle all-time high. Because if one were to start to take profits, kind of once we start getting several daily candles opening and closing below it, you're kind of missing out on a bit of price action at the top. And even though that might not be a lot, it might be worthwhile to attempt to capture more upside. So, folks, the way I kind of have begun to kind of think about this indicator is once we have a defined pattern of local tops in terms of divergence. So once we have kind of one peak here, another peak here that peaks off at around the same area, well, the next time we enter that area, this area of divergence after an established pattern with 2 peaks, I see this as a signal that we are close to a local top. And if we look at where we were when this happened in terms of price action, this was pretty goddamn close to the cycle all-time high for Bitcoin, which was 61,300. So I hope this is making some kind of sense here. This is a brand new indicator that I've created. I'm going to be flushing this idea out further. So I'm still beginning to kind of think about how this indicator may be useful. I'll be tinkering with this thing moving forward. The point is, I'll be bringing this up on the channel more and more moving forward. So again, just kind of another way of how I'm starting to think about this indicator. So we have an established kind of peak here. All right, so we have 2 peaks here. An established zone of kind of where the top is in terms of divergence. So the next time we enter a similar area, that's likely going to be a local top and price action, and that's exactly what happened here. So we had a peak here in terms of divergence, peak here in terms of divergence. That forms the pattern, and kind of the third time we enter a similar area, that's likely going to be close to a kind of a local top here as well. And so we could also say that this is one local top, this is perhaps another local top. And again, once we kind of peaked out here, we're kind of within this predefined range by these 2 peaks of local tops in divergence. So next time we enter that area, that's likely to be a top, and wouldn't you know it, that happened to be the cycle all-time high. So I hope this is making some kind of sense. Again, I will try and continue to flesh out this idea more and more moving forward. But folks, if you happen to like what you hear and it happens to make some kind of sense, I implore you to like, subscribe, comment, share, do all the things, click all the buttons. And until next time, folks.